Your non-chase breaks the pattern, and I need you to really feel what that means, because for so long you didn't just love them, you carried the connection for them. You were the one who closed every gap they created. You were the one who smoothed every awkward silence. You were the one who turned their "I don't know" into patience, and their distance into your responsibility. And you didn't do it because you were desperate. You did it because your heart is loyal, because you believed that love is effort, because you thought if you just stayed steady enough, they would finally stop running. But what you didn't realize is that in an avoidant dynamic, your chasing becomes the glue that holds their avoidance together. The pattern is simple but cruel. They pull away, you reach out. They go quiet, you try harder. They delay, you explain more. They give crumbs, you build a whole meal out of it in your mind. And every time you chase, the pattern gets rewarded, not with closeness, but with control. Because they learn, I can create distance and still keep access. I can disappear and still be chosen. I can avoid discomfort and still receive love. That's why chasing never truly fixes it. It only resets it. It gives you a moment of relief, a reply, a small warmth, a temporary return. But it also teaches your nervous system to live on a roller coaster, and it teaches their nervous system that they never have to fully show up to keep you. Now imagine the moment you don't chase, not as a tactic, not as a game, but as a decision, a quiet decision that says, I will not abandon myself anymore. You don't send the paragraph. You don't ask the same question a different way. You don't try to prove you're easy, patient, understanding, worthy. You don't run after someone who chose distance. You simply let the space remain, and that one choice breaks the pattern because the pattern requires your participation. It requires your anxiety. It requires your hope. It requires your emotional labor. When you remove yourself, the machine stops working. This is why it feels so hard at first, because your body has been trained to believe chasing is love. Your body has been trained to believe that if you don't reach out, you'll lose them. Your mind whispers, if I don't fix this now, it's over. And that panic is not weakness, it's conditioning. You've been living inside uncertainty so long that certainty feels like a threat. The pattern made you addicted to relief, the relief of a message after silence, the relief of warmth after coldness, the relief of being chosen again after feeling discarded. And what you call love in those moments is often your nervous system begging for safety. So when you don't chase, your nervous system goes through withdrawal. Your hands want to type, your chest wants to tighten, your mind wants to replay every conversation, every smile, every promise, every moment they were sweet, as if you can build a bridge back to them with memory alone. You want to reach out because reaching out used to restore calm, even if it was temporary. But the new calm you're building isn't temporary, it's real. It's the calm that comes from not betraying yourself. And here is what happens on their side when you break the pattern. In the past, distance gave them power because distance made you move, distance made you react, distance made you chase. They could pull away and still feel important because your pursuit proved it. But when you don't chase, their distance stops being a lever. It becomes what it always was, separation. It becomes consequence. It becomes the empty space where your effort used to be. And that space feels strange to them because they're used to you filling it. They're used to you softening it. They're used to you rescuing it. When you don't, they meet the silence they created, and suddenly it doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like a loss of control. But please don't romanticize their reaction. Sometimes they will spiral. Sometimes they will test. Sometimes they will reach out. And your heart will want to say, see, I mattered. But you mattered even before the reaction. You mattered even when they were quiet. You mattered even when they couldn't show it. The question is not whether you mattered. The question is whether they can love in a way that honors what you deserve. Because the pattern you broke was not love, it was survival. It was you trying to keep a connection alive that kept dying and restarting. And breaking that pattern is the most self-respecting thing you can do. Your non-chase also changes you. It returns you to yourself. It gives you back time, energy, sleep, appetite, focus. It gives you back your voice because you stop using it to convince someone to stay. It gives you back your dignity because you stop negotiating your worth in silence. It gives you back your confidence because you stop treating your needs like a burden. And the more you stay in your non-chase, the more you start to see clearly what you couldn't see when you were running after them, that real love doesn't require pursuit. It requires presence. Real love doesn't punish you with distance, it meets you with effort. Real love doesn't make you feel anxious most of the time, it makes you feel safe most of the time. This is why the strongest people aren't the ones who can fight harder for love. They are the ones who can stop fighting for someone who refuses to meet them. The strongest people are the ones who can feel the urge to chase and still choose self-respect. The strongest people are the ones who can sit in the discomfort of silence and not fill it with self-abandonment. The strongest people are the ones who can let the distance stay, even when their heart wants to run after it, because they finally understand if someone wants closeness, they will create closeness. If someone wants to keep you, they will show up. If someone values you, they won't make you compete with their fear. So if you're in that moment right now, the moment where they pulled back and everything in you wants to fix it, I want you to do something different. I want you to pause. I want you to breathe. I want you to remember that you've chased before and it did not heal the pattern. It only repeated it. I want you to remember how many times you reached out and still ended up in the same place, anxious, uncertain, waiting, and I want you to choose the new path, the path that says, I will not chase distance, I will not beg for closeness, I will not prove my worth to someone who keeps acting unsure. Because when you don't chase, you break the pattern, and breaking the pattern is not losing them, it is saving you. It is the moment you stop giving love away like it's endless, and you start giving it to the one person who has been waiting for it the most, you. They feel relief first, then uncertainty, and if you've ever watched an avoidant pull away like it's nothing, you know how brutal that first phase can feel to the person left behind, because you're sitting there with your heart exposed, your chest tight, your mind replaying everything you said, everything you shouldn't have said, everything you could say right now to fix it, while they look calm. They look untouched. They look like they just stepped out of a room that was too loud and finally got to breathe. And your brain tries to make sense of that by turning it against you. If they loved me, they wouldn't feel relief. If I mattered, they would be hurting. If I was enough, they wouldn't need space. But the relief is not proof that you are unlovable. The relief is proof that closeness triggers fear in them, and fear makes people do strange things. For an avoidant, distance often feels like safety, because distance removes the immediate demand to be emotionally present. Distance removes the pressure of expectations, the pressure of intimacy, the pressure of being needed, the pressure of being seen. When you're close to someone, you can't hide as easily. You can't stay vague forever. You can't keep one foot out without it being noticed. And an avoidant has usually built their entire survival around one idea. If I don't get too close, I won't get hurt. So when they withdraw, they feel a wave of relief, not because you didn't matter, but because their nervous system just escaped something it perceived as danger. And that's why it can feel so confusing. You might have been kind, you might have been patient, you might have been gentle, you might have asked for the bare minimum, clarity, consistency, reassurance, and still they acted like it was too much, because it wasn't about the amount of love, it was about the reality of love. Real connection asks something from us. It asks us to be accountable. It asks us to be consistent. It asks us to stay when things are uncomfortable. And to someone who learned that emotions lead to pain, the safest way to survive is to reduce emotional exposure. So when they pull away, the first feeling is relief, the same way a person feels relief when they stop running, even if they ran away from something that could have actually healed them. But relief doesn't last, because relief is not resolution. Relief is a pause, not a cure. And this is where the second phase begins, uncertainty, the part you don't see right away, the part they rarely admit, the part that arrives when the adrenaline of escape fades. Because now the questions start, quietly. Now the mind starts circling. Why aren't they chasing? Why is it so quiet? Did I push them too far? Are they finally done? Do I still matter? Do I still have access to them? And suddenly, the distance they created stops feeling like a controlled space and starts feeling like separation. They wanted space, but they didn't always want consequences. They wanted relief, but they didn't always want loss. This is why your non-chase is so powerful, because it takes away the predictable script. In the old script, they pulled away and you followed. They went quiet and you tried harder. They created uncertainty and you worked to remove it. Your effort soothed their guilt, soothed their fear, soothed their discomfort, because it said, we're still connected, even if I'm doing all the connecting. And if you've been in this cycle, you know how it feels. It feels like you're always proving love, always repairing, always trying to reach a person who keeps stepping back. But when you stop chasing, the script breaks. And without the script, uncertainty enters their system like a shock. And then they test. They test because uncertainty is uncomfortable and testing gives them quick information. A small message, a casual hey, a reaction to your story, a meme, something low risk, something that doesn't require vulnerability but asks a big question underneath, are you still there? If you respond the way you used to, quickly, emotionally, warmly, they feel relief again because access is restored. The uncertainty calms, the control returns, and often that's when they retreat again because the moment the panic passes, closeness starts to feel dangerous again and the cycle resets. This is why their behavior can feel like whiplash, because it's not guided by steady intention, it's guided by a nervous system that swings between fear of closeness and fear of loss. But here's the part you need to hold on to, because it will protect you. Their uncertainty is not automatically love. Their anxiety is not automatically commitment. Their sudden interest is not automatically change. Sometimes it is real emotion. Sometimes they do miss you. Sometimes they do think about you more than they show. But missing you is not the same as being able to hold you. Wanting you is not the same as showing up for you. Feeling fear of losing you is not the same as choosing you with consistency. And if you confuse their panic for progress, you can end up right back in the same cycle, giving your heart to someone who only reaches when they feel you slipping away. So what do you do with this emotionally when you're the one living it? You stop taking their relief personally. You stop interpreting their withdrawal as a verdict on your worth. You start seeing the pattern as a pattern, not a prophecy. You remind yourself that an avoidant's first reaction is often self-protection, not truth. Their relief does not mean you were too much. It means they don't know how to handle real. And if you've spent months or years trying to be easier to love, quieter, lower maintenance, more patient, more understanding just to keep someone from running, listen carefully. You were never meant to perform calm to make someone else comfortable. You were meant to feel safe too. Because the truth is, your nervous system deserves peace that doesn't depend on their mood. Your heart deserves a relationship where you don't have to disappear to be valued. Your love deserves to be met in real time, not only appreciated in hindsight. And when you stop chasing after distance, you force the truth to surface. Either they grow and meet you with real consistency, or their uncertainty reveals that what they wanted wasn't partnership, it was control, it was access, it was the comfort of knowing you'd always be there, doing the emotional work. And I know that can hurt, because a part of you still hopes they'll choose you, fully, clearly, bravely, but your healing begins the moment you stop needing their timeline to confirm your value. The moment you stop chasing, you stop feeding the cycle that keeps you anxious. The moment you stop chasing, you give your heart a chance to breathe again. The moment you stop chasing, you stop teaching someone that love is something they can receive without respecting the person giving it. And you start teaching yourself that your peace is sacred and you are allowed to protect it. So if you're in that moment right now, the moment where they pulled back and everything in you wants to fix it, I want you to do something different. I want you to pause. I want you to breathe. I want you to remember that you've chased before and it did not heal the pattern. It only repeated it. I want you to remember how many times you reached out and still ended up in the same place, anxious, uncertain, waiting, and I want you to choose the new path, the path that says, I will not chase distance, I will not beg for closeness, I will not prove my worth to someone who keeps acting unsure. Because when you don't chase, you break the pattern, and breaking the pattern is not losing them, it is saving you. It is the moment you stop giving love away like it's endless, and you start giving it to the one person who has been waiting for it the most, you. They start testing your availability, and it can feel so confusing because the test rarely looks like a test. It looks like a harmless message. It looks like a casual, hey stranger. It looks like a random meme at midnight. It looks like a like on your story, a reaction, a check-in that pretends nothing happened. And if you still have feelings, your heart jumps because for weeks, maybe months, you've been carrying silence like a weight. You've been wondering if you mattered. You've been replaying the last conversation. You've been thinking, maybe I should reach out. Maybe I should explain one more time. And then they appear, and your nervous system floods with hope, because hope is what you've been trained to survive on in this cycle. But a test is not a return. A test is a temperature check. A test is them trying to find out if the door is still open without risking the vulnerability of knocking properly. A test is not, I'm sorry, it's, are you still there? A test is not, I want to rebuild. It's, do I still have access? And the reason avoidance test is simple, because testing gives them power without requiring accountability. If you respond warmly, quickly, emotionally, the test tells them everything they need to know, you're still available, you still care, your heart is still within reach. And once they know that, the urgency that brought them back often fades because they got what they needed, reassurance, not necessarily repair. You need to understand what happens inside them when you stop chasing. In the past, your pursuit soothed their nervous system. Your messages said, you're still safe, you're still wanted, you can keep distance and still be chosen. Your chasing made their withdrawal feel consequence-free, but when you stop chasing, the silence becomes unfamiliar to them, and unfamiliar silence feels like risk. Risk of losing you, risk of being forgotten, risk of being replaced, risk of having to sit with the outcome of their own behavior. That's when the testing begins because they want to reduce risk quickly. They don't always know how to come back with maturity, so they come back with ambiguity because ambiguity protects their ego. If you ignore them, they can pretend they didn't really try. If you respond, they can pretend it was casual. Testing lets them reach without feeling exposed. And the painful part is, the test can feel like love to someone who has been starving. When you've been getting crumbs, even a small piece of bread feels like a meal. When you've been living in uncertainty, any sign of attention feels like relief. But the question you have to ask yourself, with your heart in one hand and your dignity in the other, is this: are they coming back to truly build something, or are they coming back to calm their anxiety? Because those are two very different motivations. Someone who comes back to build will show consistency, will speak clearly, will take responsibility, will respect your boundaries. Someone who comes back to calm their anxiety will do the minimum required to reopen the door, then retreat the moment the door feels open again. That's why the test often comes in soft forms. A how are you with no follow-through, a miss you with no apology, a we should meet with no plan, a I've been thinking with no accountability. It's emotional fishing. They throw a line, not to feed you, but to see if you still bite. And you may not want to see it this way because it sounds harsh, but it's not about labeling them as evil. It's about recognizing the pattern, so you stop confusing a tug on the line for a commitment. And listen, sometimes an avoidant does miss you. Sometimes they do care more than they show. Sometimes they do feel regret. But care without courage becomes a test. Regret without responsibility becomes a breadcrumb. Longing without action becomes a trap. And you deserve more than a relationship that lives in hints and half steps. You deserve clarity. You deserve someone who speaks like an adult, not someone who keeps you guessing so they can stay safe. So what do you do when the test arrives? First, you don't panic. You don't rush. You don't treat the message like a miracle. You treat it like information. You watch the energy behind it. You ask yourself, does this come with real effort, or does it come with a vague opening that places the emotional work back on me? Because that is the whole trick of testing. It invites you to do what you always did: fill the silence, carry the conversation, soothe their discomfort, make it easy for them to return without owning the damage. If you jump in with warmth and explanations, you hand them the old dynamic on a silver plate. They get access, you get uncertainty again. And I know it's hard because your heart wants to be soft. Your heart wants to believe in the good moment. Your heart remembers the sweetness. Your heart misses them. But softness is not the same as surrender. You can be kind and still be boundaried. You can be loving and still be discerning. You can care and still require consistency. The strongest response to a test is calm. Calm says, I'm not angry, I'm not desperate, I'm not available for crumbs. Calm doesn't punish, calm protects. Calm doesn't chase, calm observes. Because the truth is, the test is where your healing gets decided. If you pass the test by returning to the old version of you, the one who carries, the one who fixes, the one who forgives too quickly, the cycle continues. If you pass the test by staying rooted, by moving slowly, by requiring clarity, by not giving partner access to someone acting uncertain, the cycle breaks. And when the cycle breaks, something beautiful happens. You stop being controlled by their timing. You stop being pulled by their distance. You stop being rewarded by their crumbs. You start living from your own center again. So when they test your availability, remember this: a test is not proof of love. It's proof of uncertainty. A breadcrumb is not proof of change, it's proof of fear. And your job is not to prove you're still there. Your job is to protect what it cost you to become whole. Your heart has been through enough. Your peace is too expensive to give away for a message that took them weeks to send. Let their test reveal them, and let your response reveal you, the you who no longer chases distance, the you who chooses clarity, the you who loves deeply but will never again abandon yourself just to keep someone close. So if you're in that moment right now, the moment where they pulled back and everything in you wants to fix it, I want you to do something different. I want you to pause. I want you to breathe. I want you to remember that you've chased before, and it did not heal the pattern. It only repeated it. I want you to remember how many times you reached out and still ended up in the same place, anxious, uncertain, waiting, and I want you to choose the new path, the path that says, I will not chase distance, I will not beg for closeness, I will not prove my worth to someone who keeps acting unsure. Because when you don't chase, you break the pattern, and breaking the pattern is not losing them, it is saving you. It is the moment you stop giving love away like it's endless and you start giving it to the one person who has been waiting for it the most, you.